Imagine this for a second. You're a king, crown on your head, army at your command, entire nations bow when you speak. And yet, one signature from a banker can end your reign. Sounds fake, right? It's not. Because today, the most powerful institutions on earth don't wear crowns. They wear suits, and they control something kings never fully understood: money. Let me walk you through how that happened. For thousands of years, power was brutally simple. If you controlled land, soldiers, and weapons, you ruled. Kings taxed farmers, raised armies, fought wars, and built empires. Money existed, sure, but it followed power. Gold flowed toward whoever held the sword. But everything changed when trade exploded. Merchants began moving goods across continents: silk, spices, metals, art. Suddenly, wealth was traveling farther and faster than any army ever could. And that created a huge problem. Gold is heavy. Gold is risky. And moving it made you an easy target. So merchants started storing their gold with goldsmiths, people who already had secure vaults. In return, they got paper receipts that proved ownership. At first, those receipts were just placeholders, temporary. Until someone realized something dangerous. You didn't actually need the gold, as long as everyone trusted the paper. People began trading the receipts instead of the gold itself. And just like that, money stopped being metal and became belief. That's where banks quietly entered the game. Now here's the part that changed history. Goldsmiths noticed that almost nobody came back to withdraw all their gold at once. Most of it just sat there. So they took a gamble. They started lending out gold that didn't belong to them. This is fractional reserve banking, and it's one of the most powerful ideas ever created. Banks realized they could lend more money than they actually had, as long as people believed they could get their money back, which meant banks could create money, not by mining, not by conquering, but by writing numbers down. Meanwhile, kings were still fighting wars, expensive wars, and wars burned through money fast. So when kings needed cash, they did something that would change the balance of power forever. They borrowed. And banks didn't just lend. They negotiated interest, repayment schedules, control over tax revenue, trade privileges. Wars were no longer just won by generals. They were won by financiers. Entire kingdoms started drowning in debt. And debt doesn't just cost money, it costs freedom. A king who couldn't pay lost credit. No credit meant no army. No army meant rebellion. Banks didn't need soldiers. They had leverage. By the 1700s, something unbelievable had happened. Governments existed, but they owed their survival to private lenders. Power had shifted, not with a revolution, but with contracts. Then governments tried to regain control. Instead of borrowing endlessly from private banks, they created central banks. Institutions meant to manage national debt, print money, and stabilize economies. Sounds responsible, almost boring. Here's the catch. Central banks were designed to be independent, meaning they weren't directly controlled by voters, kings, or politicians. So now, unelected officials controlled interest rates, inflation, and the money supply. Decisions that could raise or destroy entire economies. At that point, kings became symbols. Real power lived in policy. Fast forward to today. Banks don't just store money. They decide who gets a future, who can buy a home, who can start a business, which countries get bailouts, and which ones collapse. A single rate change can crash markets. A single loan decision can shape generations. And when banks fail, they get rescued. When people fail, they get lectures. That's how complete the shift became. Kings ruled by force. Banks rule by dependency. Once an economy runs on debt, the lender is always in control. So next time you hear about interest rates or financial policy, don't tune out. That's not boring economics. That's power moving quietly, legally, efficiently. If this changed the way you see money even a little, hit like, drop a comment with your thoughts or what surprised you most, and subscribe because we're breaking down the systems that actually run the world. See you in the next one.